Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and in this video I'm going to tell you about how the ketogenic diet can cure depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses and mood disorders, basically. So, you may have heard about the ketogenic diet as a fat loss tool, but it actually has a lot of other curative properties. It affects your levels of inflammation, cure disease, and it can definitely be of use if you have any struggles with mental illness or depression or anxiety. And I have heard this from people I've helped directly as well. So this video is going to be on the science of how keto can affect depression, and just basically to give you a clue of how it actually works in your body on a scientific level. So my page is often about the ketogenic diet, but as far as depression, anxiety, I've broken down some of the ways that keto actually improves depression. So you have to understand the cause of a lot of depression. A lot of it can be from many factors. Even some people have recently picked up the zero carb variant of keto because of its anti-inflammatory properties. So you may have heard about Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson. They do the carnivore keto because zero carbohydrates will really rapidly decrease your levels of inflammation. And some people just have autoimmune disorders that basically their body starts to attack itself if there's any inflammatory foods, and they may have a heightened sensitivity to these inflammatory foods. So ketogenic diet typically removes all inflammatory foods. It removes all processed sugars. It removes lots of wheats and grain products that we may have intolerances to. I also have a video on gluten intolerance and how many of us may be intolerant to gluten. And any sort of food that can cause inflammation typically comes from something that was either processed or grain or plant product that was out too long, can get mold toxins, things like this. So keto removes all that, and that's just one avenue into how it can affect people, especially if they're in more the autoimmune disorder caused depression or anxiety. So that's just one way, right? I'm going to get into some other methods that I think are a little more, I guess, common, I'd say, for most people, because inflammation is a big thing in a lot of people, and keto typically removes that, but there are ways you can do keto wrong and still keep inflammation. So another way is that keto increases your neurotransmitters, particularly GABA. So you may have heard of GABA. It's a neurotransmitter, and there's also glutamate. Basically, when you start a ketogenic diet, GABA increases in your brain, and glutamate decreases, and sometimes people have imbalances of these two neurotransmitters. GABA is often known for making people feel clearer. Basically, some people take it for sleep, some people take it for focus. The whole brain fog thing tends to come from too much glutamate and not enough GABA. And keto basically reverses that ratio. And overall, more GABA can lead to not only just smoother speech and better thinking and energy throughout the day, but it can manifest itself in your mood. So if you're somebody with some sort of, I guess, cognitive, mental illness of some sort, it may be a benefit in that regard. But the main ways that I think it actually comes down to is how it affects your blood sugar and your blood insulin. So this is something that I talk about very, very frequently on my page all the time. And blood sugar and insulin are always much more controlled on a ketogenic diet. Because you're not consuming carbohydrates, you are not spiking your blood sugar, right? Your insulin graph, if we were to put it on a chart all day long, would look much more like this than if you were eating carbs, where it would look like this. Okay, so that little hand dynamic there, I just did the up and down. The volatility of your blood sugar and blood insulin when you're eating carbohydrates is much more dramatic. And that could be a problem because not only does that tie in hand with inflammation, but if you've ever experienced a no-carb diet, you'll know that you're much more smooth throughout the day. And really, our bodies were only meant to have carbohydrates in small bursts. That's why it's such a quick burning energy, and that's why we store dramatically less of it in our body compared to fat. Fat is our preferred fuel. Our brain prefers fat, and that's why every cell in our body, in grade 9 science, they teach you has the cell wall. That's fat. Our brain's made of fat. We store dramatically more fat, endless amounts of it on our body because it's our preferred fuel source. That is what fat is. It's stored energy. And when you're tapping into that and giving your body its preferred energy, not only is it having a better energy source that has 9 calories per gram compared to 4, it's a more efficient fuel, but you're reducing that blood sugar spike and blood insulin spike. A lot of inflammation can come from elevated insulin. This is something that we know. This is this is scientific fact, basically. And there are many studies that try to create a gray area over this, but Alzheimer's, diabetes, depression, anxiety, many of these things can come from elevated insulin. And when you are insulin resistant, this comes from eating, example, too many processed sugars, too much carbohydrates that your body doesn't need, right? There's nothing wrong with carbs in and of themselves, but too much of anything is a bad thing. So if you're going too crazy with sugars, even if they're natural sugars, but particularly if somebody were to drink a can of Coke every day, right? Their insulin sensitivity, which is how effectively their body can use carbs and insulin, will be decreased. And you don't want that. You want your insulin sensitivity to be sharp. That means that every time you eat carbs, it's not going to be stored as fat. It's going to just go into your muscles right away and do what it has to do. If you eat too many carbs, basically, your insulin sensitivity will drop and you will become insulin resistant. This basically means down the line, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and many cognitive, mental, behavioral issues can arise because you still have this insulin floating around your bloodstream because not all of it got used. It's your body has to secrete more of it in order to get the same job done. So because insulin can be inflammatory, too much of it, it's almost a scientific fact that C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker, gets increased from too much insulin. You can look that up. I mean, fact check me if you want, but it all checks out. With people who are trying to handle depression, anxiety, if it comes from an inflammatory reason, right? I've already covered that it could be from certain food choices. Maybe you're gluten intolerant. Maybe it's an autoimmune condition. We don't know. But as far as how your blood sugar and insulin might play into things, if you just try a ketogenic diet and you're somebody who has anxiety or depression, I'd be very convinced and very confident that it may help. I'm almost certainly convinced that it will help because this volatility in your blood sugar always affects your hunger. It affects your mood. It affects how tired you are. People always talk about being hangry and being angry, and their mood is affected by when they're hungry. That hanger comes from your blood sugar just spiked a few hours ago when you had a sandwich, and then it dropped dramatically hours after that was processed. And then your blood sugar and blood insulin are so low that you just are craving food because you had too much processed carbs. It was too big of a shock to your body that you're now really hungry, really tired, and your body only cares about getting more carbs in it. And then you get that short spike of euphoric happiness from eating that comfort food. But then again, a couple hours later, you're back to feeling like crap again. And it's very similar to the dynamic of a drug, right? That's what processed sugar can do to the body, even if it's not processed, just high doses. So large dopamine spikes and reward center spikes and things like that that are so volatile can, of course, lead to inflammation. But even if you just wrap your head around it and think about it for yourself, how do you feel after a couple hours after eating a large meal full of carbs? It can obviously affect your mentality. And if we're trying to handle a serious mental illness here of any sort, trying anything you can is of utmost importance. So blood sugar stabilization, blood insulin stabilization, in addition to, the neurotransmitters, in addition to the anti-inflammatory effects of cutting out certain foods. Those are what I think the primary mechanisms are to handling depression and anxiety. And I've had many people even message me on Instagram saying, hey, I got into this because keto fixed my depression. I've talked to people in person, day to day, who I've helped with keto saying, listen, I used to struggle with anxiety, never talked about it, bipolar, many things. And ketogenic dieting, I've seen it firsthand fix on, I can't even count, dozens of people that I've talked to. So as far as what you need to do to benefit from it for your life, I have many other videos that can help you learn how to do this. I have a free meal plan, free training plan in the description. I also am going to be releasing my online coaching site very soon. So if you want to work with me for any purpose, fat loss, lean bulk, keto cycles, keto lifestyle, mental performance, handling depression, anxiety, anything like this at the same time, I'm absolutely prepared to help you do that, and that's what my website's going to specialize on, helping people with ketogenic diets for many purposes. So If you want a more personal touch, that'll be out soon. Leave me a message if you are interested in working with me. We can talk about it. But beyond that, look into this diet more. It has many curative properties, and I know based on how I feel every day that I wouldn't be able to experience life the way I do, perform the way I do, if I wasn't doing it. And that's why I do keto for so long. I've been doing it for 7 years, and I spend the majority of the year in ketosis. So, thank you for watching this video. My name is Anthony Romano. Leave me some questions about anything related to keto and mental disorders, any other type of illness that you were interested in me talking about. I'd love to answer it. I'd love to answer your comments. I answer everybody. Thank you for watching. My name is Anthony Romano. Peace.